Namaste and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. And this midweek, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to start by asking you a question. They may not have committed an act of crime physically, but if they are actively in the cyber arena, in the cyberspace, propagating terror literature, helping translate it into local languages, are they not of a terrorist mindset themselves? Is that not a terror activity if you are aiding, abetting radicalization and pushing an agenda that is going to harm society and eventually lead to young impressionable minds picking up the gun and either harming themselves or harming larger society and trying to spread terror and an agenda that perhaps should not get any place, any root, be allowed to take root or seed itself in Bharat? Think about this, ladies and gentlemen, as we share with you this mega CNN News 18 exclusive. Your channel has accessed a fresh terror blueprint, and this one by the Al-Qaeda, which now seems to be getting into a certain level of competitive terrorism with the Islamic State or ISIS elements. CNN News 18 has accessed intel note which says that the Al-Qaeda wants to spread messages in Indian local languages. So what is it? What are they trying to do? Let us try and get you the details of what the ATC or the ITC is. This is a terror translation center that they are actually inviting people to join. They're actually putting out advertisements on their portals, on their encrypted communication platforms. This is a new tool of the Al-Qaeda Terror Translation Center. And by these, the propaganda venture, the Al-Qaeda is actually trying to accomplish dual issues or dual points. One, matching the widespread Islamic State propaganda and also recruiting youngsters into the fold. Because if you're sitting there and volunteering to translate terror literature for the Al-Qaeda, you're already in. And then you will be radicalized slowly over a period of time. The Al-Qaeda headquarters has asked its local entities to translate their original propaganda material into different local languages, including Arabic, Pashto, Persian, French, German, Portuguese, Norwegian, Indonesian, Rohingya, Hindi, Bengali, Odia, among other languages. Overall, there are about 29 different languages. In the long term, these Al-Qaeda entities are trying to build up their ideological base amongst youngsters and also gradual development of their organizational capabilities. Look at the nations that are getting involved. Norwegian also, ladies and gentlemen. Odia also. Bengali also in Bharat. But Rohingya also. So Rohingya continue to become a catchment area. But they are also looking at other languages including Pashto and Arabic. Now this is for spreading ideology and recruitment of new cadre. Al-Qaeda possibly wanted to imitate the media propaganda of the IS or ISIS and perhaps provide and push emphasis onto quote-unquote media jihad as a precursor to jihad on ground. The ITC, the Translation Center of the Al-Qaeda, publishes translation of Al-Qaeda's official content, video releases, magazines, books, speeches of prominent leaders including the now slain Ayman al-Zawahiri. It is observed that possible India-based entities have actually translated Ayman al-Zawahiri's speeches. This may also be including the one mentioning the alleged hijab controversy in Karnataka. So what's the modus operandi? How do they do this? These translated articles are widely circulated through their website. Then, of course, platforms like Chirpwire and Telegram. How do they evade the law? These translation center admins are extremely cyber conscious and ask their supporters to follow cyber security protocols to evade security agencies, and they're also using highly encrypted platforms, ladies and gentlemen. So this is the latest modus operandi. Getting into linguistics, translating the terror literature and propaganda and trying to spread it across and seed it among the generations. This is transnational, but in India it is getting into multiple languages locally. Professor B Chellaney, strategic affairs expert, is with us. Ambassador Rajiv Dogra, former diplomat, also with us. Namaste and Jai Hind, gentlemen. Let me first ask you, does this worry you that there is a certain level of competitive terrorism that we are now seeing, Professor B Chellaney?
We are getting this competitive terrorism largely because some groups enjoy a state sponsor. If there is no state sponsor, you wouldn't have this kind of specter. The fact is that many of these groups are linked to the ISI, or they're linked to ISI's proxies. Now, if you look at Al-Qaeda, the remnants of Al-Qaeda, where are they located? They're located largely in Afghanistan, under the Taliban's protection. The killing of al-Zawahiri by a US drone strike in downtown Kabul a few months ago has confirmed the cozy ties the Taliban, especially its Haqqani network, maintains with Al-Qaeda. The Taliban regime harbors Al-Qaeda and several other terror groups, including allowing them to run training camps. And then we have Pakistan's rogue ISI agency doing its part, harboring transnational terrorist groups and using terrorism as an instrument of state policy. It is in this environment that we are experiencing this kind of competitive terrorism.
But Ambassador Rajiv Dogra, is this terrorism in this current definition, or do we need to redefine what terrorism is? Does somebody have to take life or commit a physical crime to be branded a terrorist? Or is translating terror propaganda also now in the realm of terror, but in the cyber realm?
Well, the first point is to recall when I started out as Undersecretary in Ministry of External Affairs about 50 years back, and we debated endlessly as to why United Nations is not giving a definition of terrorism. Why is it not defining terrorism? Till today, we are still debating that. So I don't think we should get into the semantics of what is terrorism. Anything that hurts society at large or individuals is terrorism. But the point which you have made in your introduction is very important, because written word firstly is untraceable, very difficult to trace whether it is on paper or city walls. For example, terrorism in Punjab and Kashmir started with writings on city walls, including in Delhi. So we should be very vigilant, otherwise we'll ignore it at our peril. The second thing is, the reports are that a new leader of Al-Qaeda has taken over and he is presently hiding in Iran. So if the new leader has taken over, then he would like to do what his predecessors did and perhaps improve on that. And that is why the spread into regional languages means that he is multiplying his forces in India. Just as they have multiplied their forces in Europe, there are many areas in Europe today which are no-go areas for security forces. So I think this is the first warning, and we will be making a mistake if we ignore or minimize its consequences.
Quickly, Professor B Chellaney, before we move on, how should such people who are involved in translating terror propaganda and then pushing it on ground, how should they be treated? What kind of law should be enforced on them? Should they be brought under the ambit of UAPA?
Certainly, because those who propagate the ideology of terrorism or provide justification for conducting acts of terror, they are a bigger threat to humanity than the actual perpetrators. So those that indoctrinate youths to commit acts of terrorism are the masterminds of terrorism, and they should face the full force of law. But having said that, it's important not to exaggerate the threat of ISIS. ISIS that we have, the rump ISIS, has little relationship with the ISIS founded by the late Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. Rather, as part of Pakistani intelligence deception operations to build plausible deniability in terror attacks, ISIS-K draws its cadres largely from the Taliban's special forces, the Haqqani network. The Haqqani network, as we know, are the money and muscle behind the Taliban.
Correct.
But the Haqqani network also provide the cadres to ISIS-K. And as the Pentagon has acknowledged, it was the victorious Taliban, after it took over Kabul, that freed thousands of ISIS-K prisoners from Afghan jails.
Yes.
But the US, to protect its outreach to the Taliban, has made ISIS-K a convenient scapegoat. So we have to be very clear that the threat that we face comes from a plethora of groups that either have a state sponsor or are linked to surrogates of that state sponsor.
Now, this game of